Show me the money.
Just looking good, but I think I'm taking too long.
Back with the spot for a Glock. I took a loss over floss, but still got a knock.
Money! Derry, does that make you feel good just to say that?
All right, we are back. Show me the money. Time to do some baseball over-unders. Join me today, our podcast legal correspondent, the guy who also did over-unders with me last year. It was a tight contest throughout. Phil Fraietta is here. Phil, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. Don't remind me. Dom Smith, last day of the season.
Yeah, I don't have the sound queued up here, so I'll spare you from that one. But that was the difference last year, was the Mets hitting the over on the last day of the year.
Yep. Otherwise, we would have tied. But you got me five. You were 5-1. I was 4-2, right?
Yep, right about there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how we do this year. Although this is going to be really tough with the 60-game season, obviously.
It's going to be tough, and I will say, first of all, how shocked you actually made it here, and that looks like we're going to be on track to start the season on time.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I was on here, and I think I pegged it at about 50-50, and it looks like it's the good side of the 50. Some numbers were released by the league and the union earlier today. I think they said they had about 5 positives or so, and 10,000 or more tests. So that's very, very good. And if they can hold at that rate, they're going to be able to do this.
Yep, I have the numbers up here. This is from Tim Healy on Twitter. One of many people reported this. MLB and the MLBPA say there were 6 new positive COVID-19 tests out of 10,548 samples in the past week. That is 0.05%, 5 players, 1 staff member. And if they're able to have that kind of very low positive rates, I think they stand very good for their chance of being able to do a season.
So long as they don't have any interference with any sort of local government, then yeah, if they can keep those numbers, they're going to be able to pull this off. But I just hate to throw water on this. Just
being realistic.
Just remember that they haven't started traveling yet.
Yes, this is the easy part. This is the part where they're just going from their homes to the parks and back. Like, the challenge is going to be when they're hopping on airplanes, when they're going to other cities, going to hotels, and they're going to those new parks and back and forth. Like, that's the challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
But so far they've been able to pull it off. The increased testing seems like it's working. The rare instances where you've heard about a guy getting a positive test while in camp has not seemed to spread to the rest of the team. Seems like they've been able to catch it early enough and get him out of there. So far, so good.
Yes, indeed. And I was talking earlier in the podcast about the rumors that the Nationals not going to be able to host the Yankees on the opening series because of the concern about the D.C. mandated quarantine things. They have since gotten clearance to host that game, but we do have things to watch with them, with the Dodgers, with Toronto, specifically the 3 teams where market rules could dictate them possibly having to move the games out of the market if it becomes necessary.
Right. That's what I was alluding to earlier. Local governments may not let these games go forward, but I think that's unlikely because it seems to me like even the most stringent governments on COVID restrictions understand that being able to play Major League Baseball and have something on TV for people to watch is probably going to help them with their people please stay home initiative. So it seems like they want to do everything they can to get baseball back.
Yeah, the only one that's still up in the air right now is Toronto. We haven't really have an answer on them yet. From what it sounds like the backup plan is going to be Buffalo for them, that if they can't get the government of Canada to approve the team traveling across the border back and forth and the American teams coming across as well, that sounds like the backup plan is for them to go to AAA Buffalo.
Right, and I think that's what I had predicted would be the plan a few weeks ago. I'm not surprised by that. It's not far. It's their own affiliate, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's going on. Before we dive into the over-unders, I do want to talk to you about some of the updates of the Mets sale going on here. We had some stuff pop up this week with the whole A-Rod, Steve Cohen, Josh Harris, Harris Blitzer, Tombo bid. I want to get your opinion on a couple of these things. First off, the rumors earlier in the week about the involvement of Sheldon Adelson in the bid for the Harris group has since been disproven. But the interesting point here is that the land is what attracted Adelson to the bid. Where can you explain what's going on with the development rights around Citi Field?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too familiar with it, but my understanding is that there's a lot I guess the land that was Shea is available, and Alderson seems to think that he can make some money off that land. I'm not overly familiar with exactly what he was trying to get at, but that's my understanding is that basically there's some land around city, and part of owning the Mets is owning that land, so it can be developed and used. And it seemed like that was what was rumored to attract him more than the baseball team itself, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me personally. But that's what I think was going on. I don't know if you have a different understanding, but that was my understanding.
Yeah, it's basically what you said. Like the extent I gather is that like when they were given the permit to build Citi Field back in like 2006, 2007 ish, like they got basically some land thrown in by Mayor Bloomberg from around the park areas where all the chop shops usually are. It's like the ability to redevelop that land supposedly goes back to the city by 2025. So right now the Sterling Equities holds it as part of this sale process. So if you get the team, you get the land rights with it. So that's something that's been rumored to appeal to the Harris Group because they can potentially get the land and then sell the rights to Adelson and make some money back.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that makes sense. But I don't know how big that's going to end up being in the play. But sure. I mean, if you can sell it, get some money back, that's fine. But by the same token, the Wilpons could sell the land too. So I'm not sure how big of a factor that's going to be.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting stuff with the J-Rod group coming out. Like, obviously, we've heard about big names coming out with some of these former football players, current football players like Brian Urlacher, Travis Kelce, a lot of athletes are just joining the bid. And then we've heard some op-ed pieces today from athletes like Bradley Beal and the Wizards saying that, the MLB should get a minority owner in there in A-Rod. But then A-Rod's also gone out and shot himself in the foot by basically coming out and saying, players should take a salary cap, and he's tried to walk it back. We've had a bunch of players rip him for this. What's your take on the A-Rod thing right now?
Well, look, I think that A-Rod has really changed his image. Obviously, he's public enemy number one about 10 years ago. Now he seems to be beloved by everybody. I think that the Major League Baseball of all the groups would prefer the Rodriguez group. I think they think it would be nice to have A-Rod as a face of a franchise, so to speak, for the Mets, which is weird to say that the owner would be the face of the franchise, but he probably would. And I think they like the idea that he's not going to come in there and just throw money around like Cohen would, which I think we're going to get to and have already discussed on this podcast. So from that standpoint, I think they like it. But yeah, I mean, coming out and saying, I want a salary cap when he knows full well what has been going on in the labor negotiations between MLB and MLBPA. MLBPA is not going to be happy if he ends up getting the team now. They're going to be pretty upset about that for obvious reasons.
I also think it's a dumb thing for Alex to say, just on the regards. He's still a broadcaster for ESPN and Fox, and he needs to be able to have relationships with these players. And you're going out there basically saying, like, you guys shouldn't get paid as much as you do right now. That's not a good way to build relationships around the league with the players.
No, it's not. And it's look, I like A-Rod. People who listen to this podcast know I'm a Yankee fan. I liked him when he played for the Yankees, but let's not pretend that when Alex Rodriguez wasn't playing, he wasn't squeezing every last dime he could. It's well known that he did that. I mean, he went to the Texas Rangers because they were offering him more money. So he certainly, it doesn't sit right with me that after a guy gets his money, now he's complaining about other people getting money. That doesn't seem right.
It doesn't sit right with me either. And he, along with the Harris Group and with Steve Cohen, are into round 2 with the bidding. The rumors of the mystery bidder are still floating around, but I don't think there's actually anything there. Sounds like he's down to those 3. And right now, round 2, the big difference is that the teams are going to learn about the Mets' finances. The Mets are going to show them the books. Steve Cohen's already seen the books. He's a minority owner, and he's seen them before in the initial sale. So what kind of impact do you think that them seeing the finances, and they're supposedly not great, and that was before the pandemic, so I can only imagine what they're like now. How do you think this could impact the sale?
Yeah, I think it could definitely impact the sale. Steve Cohen a big money guy, and I don't think I've said this before. I don't think the other owners want him as an owner here. I think they're afraid that he's going to spend too much, and so and now, especially with the whole coronavirus situation, I think that concern is even more than it was in the past. So I'm concerned about that because a lot of these owners, no secret, guys like Mookie Betts are going to be free agents. They don't want to pay him, but Steve Cohen comes in, maybe he throws them a ton of money. So yeah, I think it's going to impact the bidding significantly.
I think it will. I also think Steve Cohen, I think the thing about looking specifically at the Mets books, which all three of these groups are going to do right now, is the Mets books, they're a mess because we've heard reports of them shifting loans around and that they basically, for the past decade, have basically been shuffling their money around, make payments and make sure they can pay off their stadium debt. I just think that I could see somebody like a Harris Group just get a look at those books and say, you know what, I don't want any part of this. This is much messier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's also a concern. I think I said this on your when we talked about this last, but if I didn't, buying a baseball team is not. It's not a solely economic transaction because there are a lot of things that you can do with that kind of money and make more money on than buying a baseball team. If you're going to do it, you're doing it partially just because you want to own a baseball team. You love the game. You want to be an owner. I'm not sure if the Harris Group fits that criteria.
Yeah, I don't think they do. They're looking for the value play. They're like, oh, we're going to build a regional network. We'll put the Mets, the Devils, and the Sixers together. That's sort of their idea, I think.
Look, you can make money. I'm not saying you can't make money owning a baseball team. You certainly can, but you don't do it just for the money. If you're doing it, there's more reasons there. I think the A-Rod Group obviously is in it because Alex loves baseball. I think Cohen's in it because he loves baseball. I'm not sure if Harris is there. And like you said, if you're not in it for the love of baseball, at least in part, and you see the sloppiness of the Mets financial situation, you may want no part of that.
Yeah, and you brought up the thing earlier about Steve Cohen being approved by the owners. This is a quote from an MLB insider in the New York Post this week, courtesy of Thornton McInerney, who's been on top of the sale for a while. Multiple sources tell the Post that the only hiccup Cohen would face has nothing to do with his 2016 SEC settlement and everything to do with other owners being concerned that a new owner with $13 billion might complicate the league's upcoming collective bargaining agreement. They probably would need some assurances that he would play fair on salary, said one baseball insider. A person familiar with the approval process described Cohen's chances as not a slam dunk, but I do think he'd be approved. What's your take on that quote from the insider?
No, that's exactly what I told you when we originally talked about Steve Cohen buying the team. I'm not surprised at all. And I can't believe that somebody would actually say it because, again, if I'm MLBPA, that's more ammo for me in my negotiation. But, yeah, these guys are driving down salaries. I've told you that on this podcast before. It's a concerted effort to keep salaries down, and they're afraid that a guy like Steve Cohen comes in there and blows that effort up. Says, you know what, guys, I understand that you want to keep salaries down, but Mookie Betts is a top 5 player in baseball. My team needs him, and I'm going to pay him $500 million.
Yeah, the thing I don't understand about that sentence is I get the idea that they're concerned with the salaries. But, how is he going to complicate the CBA? That's what I don't get in this whole process.
Well, what I think they mean is he complicates the CBA because the owners can't cry poverty if Steve Cohen's there throwing around money at people. Because if Cohen can afford it, then it causes everybody else to have to afford it in order to keep their teams competitive. So I think that's what they're saying. It's almost like a trickle down.
Yeah.
Cohen starts giving out big salaries, and then all of a sudden, the league can't stick with their battle cry that we can't afford to pay people this much. That's been a big trick for the owners for a while now. Well, we can't afford it, otherwise we have to raise ticket prices. And then they raise the ticket prices anyway. So I think that they're afraid that Cohen's going to blow up that whole facade.
Yeah, and Steve Cohen, I do think that he's still the favorite here. I feel like he has the most money, he's the most motivated to actually get this team. So I also think in the end of this day here, it's like I could also see Steve Cohen saying, yeah, I'll do what you want. Then as soon as he gets through, he's just doing what he wants anyway. I don't think there's any way MLB can actually like say to him like, we are not going to give you a team unless you sign here saying you're going to keep salaries down. Because again, that's something that the league could just end up being forced to give up in CBA negotiations.
No, absolutely not. That is textbook collusion. Can't do that. That the union would win a grievance on that easily. You can't do that. So this is all wink and a nod type thing. And you're right. He could just give him the wink and the nod and then just steamroll him anyway, which he very well do. I think he's the favorite too, although I wouldn't sleep on A-Rod's group because they do have a lot of different voices and people, and the rumors at least are that the Wilpons would prefer to sell to A-Rod's group. I'm not sure how true that is because you'd have to think they'd want to just sell to the highest bidder, but I think that one of those two are going to get it. I'd be surprised if the Harris group wins this bidding.
Yeah, I think the A-Rod's group knows that I think that they are having problems raising the capital. I think is why we're seeing some of these things like we're leaking that we have stars coming in. Now all of a sudden we have opinion pieces popping up in papers about how Steve Cohen's a bad guy, sort of try and stir up some sort of beef between him and the Wilpons, sort of get him out of the mix so that it clears a path for the A-Rod. I feel like there's a lot of posturing going on out that side right now.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing that they may be able to use is the Wilpons want to be a part of the Mets. They want to sell the team, but they still want to be a part. And that's why the Cohen deal blew up the first time, because Cohen, he wasn't going to fly for that. If I'm going to pay you all this money for this team, I want the team. If the A-Rod group is willing to give the Wilpons some sort of position or control over something related to the organization, they might be able to get the leg up, even if they can't outbid them on the capital, because I think that's important to the Wilpons.
I think it is too, but I just have a hard time seeing Alex Rodriguez being like as involved as he is in his own company, saying, you know what, okay, Jeff, take my money and run my team for 5 years. I have a hard time seeing him agree to do that.
No, I don't think he would agree to do that, but could I see him giving Jeff some sort of role in the organization? Maybe.
Yeah, well,
but I think if A-Rod buys a team, A-Rod's going to want to run that team.
Yeah, I think A-Rod does want to run a team. I think he wants to outdo Jeter, but we'll put a pin in that. We'll see how that develops. We'll get to the over-unders right now. We're going to do this. Basically, we have the numbers. We have them from FanDuel Sportsbook right now. There's a pretty interesting range. The top two right now, the Yankees and the Dodgers, 37.5 over-under total. The low is the Orioles at 20.5. It makes it a very complicated thing because there's a lot of these teams are around 31, 32, 20, like 29, 30. There's a lot of teams right in that middle.
Yeah, look, I'm going to caveat this. This is almost impossible. Anybody who watches baseball knows that over a 60-game stretch, pretty much anything could happen. I mean, even take a look at last year. The Detroit Tigers, I think they ended up losing 120 games or close to it. They were 500 teams with 40 games. So you just never know what's going to happen in a 60-game season. So for all the listeners, I would not run to the sports book with what me or Mike's about to say here and go put your bet in. This is more, I consider this to be more for fun, just doing the best we can and see what happens.
Yeah, this is more of a fun exercise where we're sitting here kind of going, hey, we got some games here. We got some fun with this. In the books are saying, you have to play over 59 games to get the bet in. So they're not even going to pay you that much if you have to miss like a week of season. You're not going to get paid on those.
Right. And that makes sense. Both going both ways.
Yeah, so it's going to be for fun. If you have a strong feeling, we're not going to stop you, but don't take our picks for wisdom here, because this could be, we could be 6-0, it could be 0-6. This is how crazy it is in a 60-game season.
Yeah, this is just doing it for fun. So right. I'm ready whenever you are.
All right, so since you are the guest, we'll give you the choice. Would you like the first pick or the second and third picks?
I'll take second and third. You can take the first one.
All right. Since I have the first one, I'm going to go with my gut here. I had a strong stance on this team for the last couple of weeks. I feel very good about them. I think they're going to win their division. I'm going to my Mets over 81 or 31.5 wins. And I think 32.5 wins. I think this is basically you go 33-29, you get it. 33-27, excuse me. I think the Mets can win that division. I think the Braves are going to be a little bit of a slow start because Freddie Freeman just got to camp. They don't have Markakis. Yasiel Puig supposed to replace him. He's not in the mix anymore right now because he tested positive coronavirus. I don't like the Nationals as much this year. Phillies are the Phillies. They're going to be tough. I don't think they're going to be a big factor. I like the Mets over 32.5. I think they can win this division. I think they'll take more than 32.5 wins to get there.
I agree. That was on my list. I think that the universal designated hitter is a huge benefit for the Mets. The Mets, they have at least 2 or 3 DHs on that team, and now you're going to be able to get those guys in the lineup, whether that's Cespedes or Cano, or even Conforto. Give him a day at the DH spot. I think the DH is going to be a big plus for the Mets. My only concern is I know that DeGrom has this back issue. I don't know if there's been an update on that.
Yeah,
but obviously the Mets need DeGrom to take the ball every time in order to compete.
The latest on DeGrom right now is he threw a bullpen this morning, came out of it okay. He's throwing 50 to 60 pitches and a side session on Sunday, and then if all goes well there, he is going to start opening day. That's the latest I've heard on him.
So long as you have a healthy DeGrom, I agree with that one. I think over for the Mets.
Okay, so you have the next 2 picks. So where are you going with your first one?
So I'm gonna borrow from a team I took last year, Milwaukee Brewers over. I have them at 30.5. I think the Brewers are a good team. Last year they were playing very well, and then Yelich came up with the injury, and then they kind of limped into the playoffs. But I think that a healthy Brewer team is a good team. I can see them winning that division even. So I like the Brewers over 30.5.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick because obviously they got Yelich. They got some good pieces on there. I feel like they also did a massive revamp of their team. They switched out about like 8 or 9 guys, brought 8 or 9 new guys in to sort of like keep the finances together. But I think having Yelich is a great start. I could see it because the NL Central is very tight. There's 4 teams that are really close together and the Pirates stink. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Brewers have a good year.
Yeah, and 30.5 isn't a great year even. I mean, all I needed to do is go 31-29. They got to play 500 ball.
Yep. That's the kind of logic you're looking for in a 60-game season.
Right. So I don't think it's crazy, so I'm going to go with them. My second pick here, I'm going to go under on the San Francisco Giants at 25.5. I don't see anything on the Giants that makes you happy. Posey's out for the season now. He doesn't want to play due to COVID. They lost Bumgarner. It's just a team that doesn't seem to have much of anything. So I don't think the division's great. The Dodgers are good, obviously. I think Arizona's okay. Colorado's competitive, but I think the Padres are competitive. The Giants seem like the clear worst team in that division. So I'm going to go under 25.5.
Yeah, I like that pick. I didn't think about it as much, but the logic makes a lot of sense because that's an old team. There's a lot of guys there who are not going to be motivated if that team gets off to a bad start. I could see a bunch of their guys sort of mentally checking out if they get up to September 1st and they're like 7-17 or something like that. I could see them easily just like folding, like packing it in if they're have nothing to play for.
Or even opting out.
That's also possible. All right.
So yeah, under on the Giants.
Okay, so you have you have one each on the board. My next pick, I'm looking at my list here, seeing what I like. I'm going to actually go with an under here. I'm going to take the Red Sox under 30.5 wins because I don't think this team is very good. Losing Mookie Betts is a massive downgrade regardless. They lost Chris Sale to Tommy John surgery before the season even started. Eduardo Rodriguez, their number 1 starter right now, has tested positive coronavirus. We don't know when he's showing up. They're playing against the National League East and the American League East, which are 2 very good divisions. I don't think that team is good. They can hit, but they don't really have anybody who can pitch. Nathan Eovaldi is their top starter, and I think this team could easily be below 500. Give me the Red Sox under 30.5.
Yep, agreed with that one. The Red Sox are a very strange team the past decade or so. They've had these just absolutely dreadful seasons, and then they go on and win the World Series, and then they're terrible again. That's been a trajectory that they've been taking, and it looks like they're on the down here. They've been able to rebuild real quick, but this season was kind of a throwaway for them to begin with once they made the Mookie Betts trade. Now that it's a short season, I just don't see them doing much.
Yeah, besides the the games of the Rays and the Yankees, we're going to beat them up. Toronto's good. Toronto will give them a fight. And those 4 NL East teams, they have a lot of games with them who can give them a lot of trouble. So I would not be thrilled if you're a Red Sox fan this year.
No, not a year to be a Red Sox fan.
All right, where are you going with your next pick?
So you hit it at it a little bit there. I'm going to go over on the Toronto Blue Jays. I have them at 27.5. I think the Blue Jays have a lot of good young talent on that team, as everybody saw last year with all these sons of Hall of Famers coming up. And I think that bodes well for them in a short season. Got a lot of young kids who presumably are going to be reared up and ready to play. They don't have the same kind of day-to-day concerns about the virus that maybe some of the older guys with families do. So I like the Blue Jays to go in here with those young guys and compete. I'm not predicting them to make the playoffs or anything like that, but I could see them getting to 30 wins or going 500 here.
Yeah, I had them on my list too. I like that value there. Anthony Sorrell, when he was just on a couple of minutes ago, he picked them to make the wild card of the American League. I think it's a little far-fetched, but I do think they can be very competitive throughout. 27.5, not a high number. They can still be below 500. You can win that bet.
Right. All you got to do is get to 28, and I win that one. And I wouldn't say wild card because I don't love their pitching, but I do think they have a lot of good young talent on offense, and I think they can muscle out a few wins. The downside is, like you said, they are going to be playing some very, very good teams all year, but I think a short season benefits a team like that.
Okay, I'm back up. I'm going back to the underwell. I'm going to steal one that you had last year just on the logic. I know the number is tight, but this team is still horrendously bad, and I don't see how their schedule is going to give them the ground to win this many games. I'm taking the Orioles under the 20.5 wins because Baltimore has not gotten much better from year to year. Their best player, Trey Mancini, was already out for the season before this even started here. You're playing the National League East now, which means you get a lot of games against good teams, and the American League East is a beast to begin with. I don't think Baltimore might win. Baltimore might win 15 games this year, so give me the Orioles with the under here at the 20.5.
Yeah, the number's so low that it scared me, but I can't disagree with any of your logic. I could see that.
Yeah, the concern I have is the number is so low because if they could go 21-39, then I could still lose the bet. But I think they're bad enough, and especially if they get off to a bad start, I could see a lot of the players who are saying, what am I doing here? Why am I caring about this team? And just mail it in for the last month.
Sure, I can see that.
All right, so you have 2 overs and an under at this point. Where are you going with your next pick?
I'm going to go for my last over, and it's a bit of a homer pick, and I'm not crazy about it, but I'm going to go the Yankees over the 37.5. And the reason why is something you just alluded to. If you look at the Yankee schedule, their last 30 games of the year are against absolute crap. They play the Orioles a bunch of times. They play the
Toronto.
They play Toronto, who I don't think is crap, but they play the Marlins a bunch of times. They have a very, very soft landing, and I think that you are going to get to a point in September where people on the Orioles and guys on the Marlins are, what the hell am I doing here? There's no crowds. What is even exciting me about this? Yeah, I'm all right. I'm going to get my paycheck, but that's about it. So I think that the Yankees are going to feast on that, and I can see the Yankees getting to 40 because of it.
Yeah, I like that pick. The number is the overs. I didn't take them because it's a high number. I also don't have them winning the division. I think the AL East will be a very tight 2-team race, but I think that number could easily have. They have the most talent in the American League, and they could easily hit the over.
Right. Now, obviously, there's concerns with they injuries. Keep hearing more about Aaron Judge. Now his neck hurts. Stanton can't play the outfield. Chapman's got coronavirus. So that concerns me. And it's a short season, and they can easily limp out of the gate. But I think that the schedule gods gave them a very, very soft landing, and they could take advantage.
Yeah, they did. I'm going to go to the overwhelm next. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Reds over 31.5. I think this team will win the National League Central this year. They have a lot of good pitching. They have a talented lineup. I don't think the Central is great shakes right now, and Cincinnati's all in this year. Trevor Bauer is playing for a contract. A lot of guys are playing for contracts in that team. Cincinnati has a good lineup. I think this is just ripe for the taking. Those games against the American League Central helped them out a lot. Give me the Reds over 31.5.
That one I disagree with. I don't like the Reds. I didn't like them last year. I still don't like them. I think they're overrated. I know that they have some pieces and they keep getting better, but I don't love them. I like the Cubs better. I like the Cardinals better, and I like the Brewers better.
Well, that is fair. We'll agree to disagree on that. I have the Reds my NL Central champion, so I'm going to take them over 31.5.
Fair enough. All right, I guess I'm up with an under now. So I'm going to stick with the NL East under Miami Marlins 24.5. For a lot of the same reasons we already talked about. They're playing the NL East, with the other four teams are clearly better than them, and they're playing the AL East, where all the teams are better than them, I think, except Baltimore. Yeah. So I just think their schedule is going to beat them down, and I'm going with the under on them for that reason.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Marlins did get a little better, but it's not enough in this division where you're playing 40 games against four very good teams, plus another 6 against the Rays, 3 or 4 against the Yankees. Toronto's tough. The wins, I don't know where they're coming from.
No, it's baseball, so anything can happen. But I don't like the Marlins.
Yeah, that's your second one. Okay, I have an over and under to go. I'm gonna take my final under here. I'm going to take the Washington Nationals under 33.5 wins because I think right now, there's a risk they get off to a slow start because they have so many guys who are, late into camp because they've had to deal with the quarantine rules in D.C. This team already has a bit of a weak lineup after losing Anthony Rendon a year ago. They still have great starting pitching, but they won the playoffs because if their starters were short, they could put another starter behind them in the bullpen. You cannot do that in a regular season. They only have a couple of quality relievers, and one of them, Sean Doolittle, is kind of on the fence here, saying, I'll see how this goes. He could be an opt-out risk. I don't like the Nationals this year. I think there might be a little bit of hangover here. I think they're going to be under the 33.5. I think I have them missing the playoffs entirely.
I agree with all that. I don't see where they're going to get enough offense from. Without Soto's great, but without Rendon, there's not a lot of offense there.
No, it's not. Because they have good starting pitching. Losing Ryan Zimmerman's a bigger deal than they want to admit because, he's a guy who would have pplayed a lot for them this year, and now they don't have him. So, you're hoping that guys some of your younger players, like your Carter Keybooms, your Victor Robles, that step up and play bigger roles because they're going to have to step up for that offense to be quality this year.
Right, and let me say one thing. Starting pitching in a short season, I think, is actually not as big of an advantage as it is in a long season. The reason I say that is these guys have not had a lot of time to build up. So I don't think you're going to have many starters going out there in the 7th and 8th. Not that you have that in regular baseball anyway, but I think you're really not going to see it a lot now. And it's the way that pitching works over a season. When you look at some of these baseball's top pitchers, so the way I've been thinking about this is 60 games would put you in a normal season at about Memorial Day, give or take, right?
Yeah, about there.
So if you go and look at some of the top line pitchers in baseball, what their numbers are on Memorial Day, you're not going to be that impressed for the most part. Generally, the way it works is pitchers kind of lock in the second half and just completely shut down the opposition. So I think you're not going to see that benefit. So I agree with you. Any team that relies on starting pitching, I think the short season is a disadvantage for them.
Yeah, not only that, it's the bullpen is a major advantage. I loved your Yankee pick because they have so many quality relievers that they can shorten games. If their star's not going deep, doesn't matter. They have a bunch of guys who can go in there. You don't have to worry about burning them out as much because you're playing a sprint as opposed to a marathon where if you overuse your bullpen by May, they're dead for the rest of the year and you're screwed. Whereas here, you're just getting them primed for the playoffs.
Right. The Yankees' strategy is real simple. If you're Aaron Boone, unless the guy on the mound named Garrett Cole, he's throwing 5 innings and you take him out.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It is that simple, and you are on the clock for your final pick. So where are you going for your last under?
This is a tough one. I've looked around, and I'm kind of just struggling to even find somewhere to go. But let me go under on the Atlanta Braves. I agree with a lot of what you said about the Braves. They do have a lot of good young talent, but I'm not sure they have enough in the way of the bullpen or the starting pitching to get over the top there. I know Freddie Freeman had coronavirus, and apparently it took a big toll on him. I guess he's back in camp now, but from all accounts, it really beat him up pretty bad. So you got to assume he's going to take a while to get going. And the number's 33.5. So I got some, they could still be a competitive team and miss it. So I'm going to go under Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, that's what I was on the fence about with the Braves. I had them on my potential under list. I do think they can recover and get in the playoffs, like about 33 wins, just to get them right at the number. But I think Atlanta is concerning because you have Markakis opted out. They have a bunch of guys opt out or deal with the coronavirus, which is not great for them, and tough schedule. I get the Mets right out of the gate, I think 7 times the first week of the season. So that's something that you could look at and say, boy, that's a lot of games early. That if the Mets put a number on them early, that could put the Braves way behind.
I agree, and early on in the season, so this kind of contradicts what I said earlier. So let me try to explain. Early in the season, it's typically the pitching who has the advantage because of the way that this works. You only got 3 weeks to get your timing back. So I would think pitchers are going to have the advantage early. I think towards the middle of the season is when the pitchers start to lose their advantage in a typical season. So I agree. I would not want to play a team like the Mets in the first week of the season where you're going to see DeGrom and Stroman and those type of guys. I do not want to see them early on. I think they're going to shut you down.
Yeah, so that's a good pick. I like that. That's the last one you have on the board. I have one more to go. I have one over left, and I'm trying to decide where I want to go with this one. And I think just because the competition is going to be so pitiful, I'm going to take the Twins over 34.5 wins. Just again, the very good team, a lot of good pieces on that team. They brought Josh Donaldson in to help make the offense even more potent, and a lot of games against the Kansas City Royals, a lot of games against the Detroit Tigers. A lot of games against the Pirates who stink, and they are very good. I think they will pile out the victories. I think this team wins 35, 36 games easy. Give me the Twins.
I like that pick too, and they don't have to play the Yankees, so you have that advantage too, because we all know that the Twins, if they didn't have to play the Yankees, I think they could probably win the World Series. But the way that they run into the Yankees, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, they literally, as the great Rick Cerrone put on this podcast last year for the playoffs, he said the Twins are the Washington Generals to the Yankees Harlem Globetrotters.
Pretty much. Knock on wood, because I could see them seeing each other this year. But so who's your World Series then?
I said this earlier in the podcast. I had the Dodgers topping the Rays.
All right, I like the Rays. I could see it. I think you have to pick the Dodgers. I think they're the clear favorite in the National League.
Yeah,
American League.
They are far and away the best team in the National League.
Yeah, I think that's right. In the American League, I guess I think you have a 3-way toss-up between the Yankees, the Rays, and the Astros.
Yeah, I don't like the Astros as much this year. I think they'll get there, but I just think that the clock is starting to run out on them because guys are going to start getting paid. Verlander's getting up there in age. Losing Cole's a massive deal. I think they could be. I think this might be the last ride for this core.
Yeah, I agree with that. But Houston they're still the best team in their division by far. You still get into a playoff series. They have Verlander. They have Greinke. I still think they could compete in a short series. And then, of course, the Rays and the Yankees. I expect to be a very, very tight race for that division.
Yeah, I took the Rays in the division by just a nose over the Yankees because I think 1-15, I think their pitching depth is better than the Yankee pitching depth. I think that's going to be the difference for them in the shorter season.
They're better in the rotation. I agree. The bullpen's pretty much a toss-up. The Yankee offense is a lot better, but the Yankee offense, to me, is a tremendous question mark because I don't know who is going to be in the lineup on a given day, given what we've seen with the injuries. I'm pretty shocked that it's July 17 and we still don't know if Giancarlo Stanton can play the outfield. I thought the guy pulled his calf, so I'm a little worried about that. But yeah, I could see it. My World Series, I've I'll go with the Yankees just because I'm a fan. I'll say they'll beat the Dodgers, but that's not a confident pick. That's more of a fan pick with my heart.
Yeah, well, I could see the Yankees getting there too. That's definitely the other option. To recap the over-unders, mine were the Mets over 32.5, the Red Sox under 30.5, the Orioles under 20.5, Reds over 31.5, Nationals under 33.5, Twins over 34.5. No teams out of the West for me. You had the Brewers over 30.5, the Giants under 25.5, the Blue Jays over 27.5, Yankees over 37.5, Marlins under 24.5, and the Braves under 33.5. We basically hit the entire National League, American League East, except for I think the Phillies and the Rays.
Yeah, that's probably not a coincidence. There's probably a little homer there, but yeah, that's what we know, and I think those are the most interesting divisions in baseball. I think the rest of them are, with the exception of probably the NL Central, that's a bit of a toss-up. But the rest of them, you have clear favorites. I think Minnesota's a clear favorite. The Dodgers are a clear favorite. And
Houston,
right. Houston's a clear favorite.
Yeah, because I think barring something crazy like a massive run of injuries on any of those teams, I do think that like those are the clear favorites. I think everybody safely pencils those three into the playoffs. I think when I did the division like picks with Schneiderhan and Anthony Sorbolini earlier in the podcast, we agreed that clean sweep on those three divisions.
Yeah, so it's not as fun to pick over-unders in divisions like that either. So I think that's where we got where we are. The team I do before we sign off here, the team that I'm really interested in seeing this year is the Angels. I'd like to see how the Angels operate with Mike Trout, and assuming he plays with the situation, and Ohtani. I want to see how that works out for the Angels.
Yeah, my dark horse pick, I actually picked Shohei Ohtani to be the American League MVP. I don't think there's so many guys who are going to be so tight together with their numbers that if Ohtani's good on both on the mound and at the plate, I think that this could be a series. And we go, oh, he did so much in 60 games. He's the MVP.
Could be, yeah. I'm excited to see him play this year.
I am too. Phil, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Mike, and happy to jump on anytime, and we'll see who wins this Met bidding.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Before I let you go, I want to ask you an opinion real quick. What is your favorite baseball movie?
Oh, that's a good question. Field of Dreams.
I agree with that. We're going to do a baseball movie draft on the podcast up next. John Stanko, Sandra Rosa, Alan Austin doing that draft with me right after this.